2 more seasons. We have 2 more seasons left of The Sopranos, and I have finally finished season 4. First off, I got to get better at watching these like faster because I got to like episode 7 maybe, and then just kind of stopped watching, started watching other stuff, started doing other stuff, got back on it, got to like episode 9, 10 or something, and then did the same thing again. So I was reading over the Wikipedia article of the season and looking over some of the episodes again, and I forgot some of this stuff happened in the same season. So we have a lot to go over. This was a very big season. There's a lot that happened. First off, Paulie is a snake. Paulie's a rat. He's not an actual rat, but he is a snake. And we start off with him on the phone talking to Johnny, and we see him over the season trying to get close to Johnny, trying to get in with Johnny, thinking that Johnny will go and talk to Carmine and put in a good word for him in case something happens with Tony, in case whatever. And it ends up completely backfiring. Not backfiring, it ends up being for nothing. Carmine doesn't know who the hell Paulie is. He doesn't even recognize him when he sees him. Johnny's never said anything about Paulie to Carmine, and that makes me happy. And after all this kissing up to Johnny, Paulie, who now knows that it was all for nothing, starts going and kissing back up to Tony and all of them. I think Silvio even says in one of the episodes to Paulie, people are starting to question where your faith is, whose side you're on, where your loyalty lies, whatever he says. And of course, Paulie's like, is it Tony who's saying that? Who's saying that? Paulie starts getting defensive about it, and I don't think Silvio buys it. But like I said, it ends up being for nothing. Paulie is now back to kissing up to Tony and everyone in that crew. The next thing that happens, Ralphie makes a joke about Johnny's wife, and it gets back to Johnny eventually. And Johnny is not happy about that. He is very angry about that. So much so that Johnny sends a hit on Ralphie. But at the very last minute, Johnny is leaving his house, goes back in, and finds his wife cheating on her diet. So he calls the hit off. So Ralphie is still okay. Until he's not. Later on, one of Ralphie's kids, they're playing around with arrows, and he gets shot by an arrow because they're shooting it up in the air. He is in very critical condition in the hospital. Ralphie, it's never said whether he did it or not, technically, but he pretty much did it. He killed the horse he had, the horse that Tony very much liked, in order to get insurance money for the horse so we could pay for the hospital bills of his son. And this infuriates Tony. Tony is so mad about this horse, so much so that he goes to Ralphie's house and kills him. So Ralphie's gone. Tony kills Ralphie and then calls up Chris and says, hey, you got to come here and help me and get rid of this. With this and some other scenes that we see, Chris is now Tony's right-hand man. And Tony's plan is to give all of his orders to Chris, and then Chris goes and tells them to everyone else. So essentially, Tony is the man at the top, Chris is here, and then everybody else follows down here. But that doesn't go too well. I'm skipping ahead on my notes. That doesn't go too well when Chris goes and kills Adriana's dog because he's shooting up and he sits on the dog and kills it. And Adriana comes back and she's looking for the dog. She's like, where's the dog at? And Chris goes and sits up and the dog is there underneath him. This, along with some other problems that Chris has been having for a while, eventually lead everyone to get him to a, what's it called? When they all come together and talk. I don't remember what that's called. An intervention. They all have an intervention, and Chris goes into rehab. And we see him come out, and he seems to be doing very well now. Very well, now that he's out of rehab. He seems clean. Hopefully he stays that way. Chris is my second favorite character. We will get to my first, who unfortunately is no longer here. He is no longer part of the show. But Chris is my second favorite character. And luckily, he's clean. Hopefully it stays that way. While we're on the topic of Adriana, this I like Adriana, but she's really fucking stupid sometimes because she is talking to the FBI. She is still talking to the FBI. She thinks that if Chris and her get married, then they won't be able to use any of the evidence against her. And then eventually she goes to an attorney or a lawyer, and he's like, no, they can still use all that stuff. And then Chris sits on the dog and kills it. And she's like, you know what? The wedding's off. We're not getting married because you're a junkie. And she still continues to talk to the FBI. And then Chris gets out of rehab and they get back together. They seem happy. And she's still talking to the FBI. This this is going to catch up with her. I know it is. I don't know how, but it's going to. Whether it be the FBI brings this to court and then it's found out there, or whether she says something to Chris and then something happens. I don't know, but this is going to come out. Before we get to my favorite character, we have to talk about my now least favorite character of the show, and it's Janice. I think I said this in my last video. With Tony's mom dead, somebody has to be the worst character of the show, and it is Janice. It has been Janice ever since Tony's mom died, and she doesn't get any better. Bobby's wife has been dead, and Janice wants Bobby now because she sees how much Bobby cared about his wife. I don't know, she just wants someone like that. So she will not leave Bobby alone. And I like Bobby, but god damn it, why do you have to be so stupid? He eventually gives in and he starts falling for Janice. And they become a couple, I guess. They're kissing in front of Junior after the end of his trial. That's another thing we have to talk about. Junior has been on trial pretty much this whole season. Part of the last season, too, I think. It finally ends. The case finally ends. Junior is no longer going to trial. At one point, Junior falls and hits his head. He gets a little bit of an ouchie. And so they try and play it off as he hit his head so bad, he now just has old person syndrome and he can't remember anything. And he's bad with memory, doing stuff, trying to get to a mistrial. That ends up not working. So they go and talk to one of the jurors and get him, not threatening, but they let him know, hey, make sure this goes good in Junior's way. Eventually, the jury cannot decide on which way to go with Junior's case, and it leads to a mistrial. So that ends up good for Junior. Now we talk about my favorite character. My favorite character, Furio. He was just such a good character. And he started liking Carmela. Carmela started liking him. And as much as I want Tony and Carmela to be together, I would like it if Furio and Carmela got together. Something would have to happen to Tony because Furio knows. Furio goes to Italy and talks to his uncle and explains this to his uncle that he has feelings for Carmela. And his uncle is like, the only way you can be with her is if Tony's dead. And Furio knows this. This leads to Furio almost killing Tony. They're on a helicopter pad, and Tony is taking a piss right next to the helicopter blades. And Furio is looking at him and thinks about almost pushes Tony into the helicopter blade. Just like that, it would have been done. It would have been easy. And all Furio wanted was to be happy with Carmela. I don't want Tony dead, but I want Furio and Carmela to be happy together. They'd be happy together. They seem so nice together. But that doesn't happen. After Furio almost tries to kill Tony / kind of saves him, he just packs up and leaves. And he's gone. I don't think he's going to be in the show anymore. I don't think he's coming back. And it makes me really sad because, like I said, he was my favorite character. And you know where the season ends on now? Tony and Carmela are getting a divorce. After Furio leaving because he can't be with Carmela and he doesn't want to kill Tony, Carmela clearly having feelings for Furio and not being happy for a long time with Tony, they are now getting a divorce. Push has come to shove. Carmela does not want to work it out anymore. She is tired of Tony going around with numerous women, constantly cheating on her, being lied to, and most importantly, she feels unappreciated. She feels like Tony doesn't talk to her the way that Furio did. And so Carmela just wants it gone. She wants it done. And that's where the season ends. I I'm really looking forward to the next season now. I like I said, I got to get better at actually just powering through these and just continuing to watch them like back to back to back to back and not just watch a couple episodes, wait a week, watch a couple more episodes, wait 2 weeks. I got to get better at watching them. I'm going to try and power through the next 2 seasons. We've got 2 seasons left. I'm going to try and finish them quick and then I'll let you know what I think. With that, if you like the video, subscribe if you want. I appreciate anything. And with that, have a good night, day. It's night for me. Goodbye.